The Sun Gym gang was running out of money and looking for a new target.
Who owns that one, you know?
They were just about to find him. In the 90s, in exclusive Miami social circles, yellow was the new black, and everyone loved to show off. Hungarian millionaire Frank Griga fit right in.
And he was a guy who was living the American dream. He had a beautiful house in Sunny Isles. He had a beautiful girlfriend. He felt like the world was his, and it was.
Griga had made his millions in a new all-American innovation, phone sex. He had a yacht, a palatial mansion, a bombshell girlfriend named Christina Furton. And now, a set of stalkers who were looking to pull off a repeat performance of what they'd done with Mark Schiller. It was Doorbal who had found him.
Noelle Doorbal is sitting there with his girlfriend, stripper, going through her photo album, and he sees a picture of this young guy next to a beautiful yellow Lamborghini, and he said,
"Hey, who is that?"
Griga, my ex-boyfriend.
And she says, "Oh, that's my ex-boyfriend. He's very wealthy."
They had a business plan. That was their business plan. You know, find wealthy men, you know, have somebody to finger them, and then go out and get them.
That was who Danny wanted to be, and that was who Doorbal wanted to be. They wanted to be Frank Griga, but they weren't.
I would say about $1.5 million, $2 million.
Lugo and Doorbal approached Griga with a business deal and asked him and his girlfriend over to Doorbal's apartment.
They've bought everything they need for the kidnapping. They bought Rompum, a tranquilizer that is used on horses. They're going to take everything they had, just like they did with Marcelo Schiller.
There was a ruse, a plan. Doorbal would take Frank into the bedroom.
Definitely want to take a couple days, think about it.
But right from the start, it goes terribly wrong.
Danny Lugo is sitting with Christina Furton, and Noelle Doorbal says to Frank, "Oh, come on in the bedroom."
Put some cables through the roof.
Nice. But she starts hearing this clamoring and this banging and all this stuff, and she gets up and is shocked to find Griga in a chokehold and is basically killing him.
Doorbal was a steroid user, a man that I don't think knew his own strength.
Shut her up, man.
She screams and immediately injected with Rompum, and the plan is already going south.
Dude, he doesn't have a pulse. What the
Before they ever get a dime, Frank Griga is now dead, and they don't have a penny.
Certain recriminations are voiced.
Saw him, bro. He started fighting with me.
Jeez.
They amuse themselves until she starts coming to. They resolve that they can at least get Christina to get them into Griga's mansion.
And as she comes to, she starts crying and asking to see Frank, who she saw just hours ago being murdered. And they say, we'll let you see Frank. What are the codes to the house?
I don't know.
They slap her, they ask her for the codes.
But they've injected her with horse tranquilizers, so she's not the most coherent, and she's certainly not the most cooperative. But they keep pushing her, and they inject her with some more, and she rattles off some numbers, which they write down.
Lugo drives to the mansion, but the code doesn't work, so he calls Delgado and Doorbal, who were at the house.
Danny Lugo, on speakerphone, dials Noelle Doorbal and says, "I need another code. The code didn't work. Get one."
Hold on.
And at this point, Doorbal gets back on the phone, and his words to Danny is,
Yo, man, this bitch is cold.
Christina was shot with enough horse tranquilizer to kill 4 1,000-pound horses.
So now they've got 2 dead bodies and not a dime. So what do you do?
Mr. Lugo went to Home Depot and used his own credit card to purchase a power saw to dismember the bodies.
And the case is particularly gruesome in that respect because the chainsaw gets caught in Christina's hair and it tangles up and it won't work. So they just throw it aside and they pull out their trusty axe.
And they were put into one of those big oil drums. Then they disposed of them someplace in the Everglades.
They say each man's death diminishes us. But does it diminish us less if we get to drive his Lamborghini? Meanwhile, Frank and Christina are missing, and their friends and family are frantic.
They call the police, And where were they last seen? Well, they were last going to dinner with Danny Lugo and Noel Doorbal. And somebody goes, what? Weren't those the two guys that Schiller guy told us kidnapped them?
Homicide asked me if I was investigating the Mark Schiller case, and I told them I was. And they told me there had been a kidnapping. Well, I felt terrible, of course.
And all of a sudden, everything hits the fan.
You know, screw them. You know, they're paid to be detectives and do the case right, and they didn't do it.
I got a call from Ed. Tells me that they did it again.
292-13, 18th Avenue South.
On June 3rd at 7 a.m., 75 police officers swooped in to arrest Doorbal and Delgado and their accomplices.
Do you see Delgado? Where is he?
Noel Doorbal, George Delgado, all in custody.
As they were being arrested, was each of them already starting to think about how to save his own skin?
Get your hands up!
I didn't know at that time whether any of the defendants would wind up testifying against the other defendants and cut some kind of a deal for themselves.
In fact, it would be George Delgado who ultimately cuts a deal. The man that betrayed his mentor would turn on his friends.
He flipped right away.
We made a deal with the devil. We wanted to know the information that we couldn't know because we weren't there.
Who is it going to be that's going to be the least culpable, even though they're all bad?
Doorbal initially admitted to the abduction, but then stopped talking. Lugo had fled to the Bahamas, but was soon apprehended as well. The trial began on February 24th, 1998.
It took 6 months. There were 1,200 items of evidence.
And 2 juries to bring closure for the families of Griga and Furton. The assistant state attorney was Gail Levine.
This was a life-changing case for me. This case was the reason why I'm a career prosecutor.
They slapped me, they hit me,
For star witness Mark Schiller, seeing the men who had tortured him in handcuffs was a moment to savor.
So, sort of a kind of a power trip thing. I was the one with the power, and just they had lost all their power, so.
And for investigator Ed Du Bois,
I loved it. You know, I looked every one of them right smack in the eye, and I just loved testifying against those bastards.
The evidence brought forth by Gail Levine was unassailable. The verdicts came in.
Daniel Lugo is guilty of first-degree murder.
It took only 14 minutes for the jury to decide to sentence Lugo to death, 18 minutes for Doorbal.
It was a sobering moment. I remember exactly where I was, how I felt, how it sounded.
For Mark Schiller, after 4 years, finally vindication, payback, revenge. He has returned from South America numerous times to help the prosecution. Now he comes back to help one more time.
Marcelo Schiller did not have to come back for the penalty phase. He wasn't needed, but he did.
Yeah, I came back.
He reads an impact statement that everyone agrees is incredibly powerful. He gets off the stand, and then...
Schiller came all the way back from Colombia at the behest of the assistant state attorney on the case, Gail Levine, not knowing what was about to happen to him.
And as he walks out of my courtroom door, the FBI grabs him.
The FBI has just 3 words to say to him.
That you're under arrest.
Revenge is a tricky thing. Want it too badly, and it can come back to bite you. Marcelo Schiller had helped put away his tormentors, but in doing so, helped the feds build a case against himself.
He comes back and takes a stand, and as he walks out of my courtroom door, the FBI grabs him and charges him with Medicare fraud.
Like so many other Miami stories, things turned out to be not quite what they seemed. Remember his nutritional company? The feds say he used it to bill $14.6 million in fraudulent Medicare charges.
The FBI was waiting for him, and nobody can tell me that Gail Levine didn't know about that, okay?
I think Gail Levine was in a difficult position. If the feds are investigating, they're investigating.
I was very focused on what I needed to do. Whatever the federal government was doing was really not my concern.
There are times when the federal government has its investigation, and we have ours. And sometimes we coordinate those, and sometimes we do not. We intentionally and respectfully keep them separate.
In the end, Schiller pled guilty to a single count of Medicare fraud. At the last minute, he received help from an unexpected source.
I was asked by his lawyer if I would go testify in federal court on Marcelo Schiller's behalf, which is unheard of. You know, judges just don't do that. But there just was something different about this case. That man was tortured worse than a prisoner of war. It was horrific. Bam! Just something in me told me that it should be taken into consideration in the sentencing for the Medicare fraud.
And what of George Delgado? In a story full of revenge, perhaps he got the final payback by fingering Mark Schiller to the FBI. He served 9 years but is now free. His new wife told us he's a changed man who wants to put these events behind him.
When you look at all, Danny Lugo was bad, you know, but George Delgado, in my mind, was worse.
Mark Schiller served 46 months, the minimum sentence possible, and is a free man himself these days. But he lost nearly everything. He's written a book called Pain and Gain, The Untold True Story. And a major Hollywood movie about these events is opening in April, starring Mark Wahlberg as Danny Lugo.
I watched a lot of movies, Paul. I know what I'm doing.
This is not your typical case. Then this is not your typical story with a happy ending. They almost got away with it. If Marcelo Schiller had died, they might very well have gotten away with that crime.
I think everything happens for a reason. Maybe I'm still learning what the reason was.
Well, it's a story that has everything in it. It has fast cars and beautiful women and drugs and millions of dollars, kidnappings and crime. And in that sense, yeah, it's a Miami story. As for the lack of resolution, the lack of a clear hero, I think that's just life.